Welcome to the first attempt at a clip on the Roman army by RomanEmpire.net. First off, let's start with a look at the heavily laden Roman legionary on the march. It was this arduous duty which earned the soldiers the nickname Muli Marii, or Marian mules, after the famous general Gaius Marius. A centurion inspects his troops. Immediately apparent are his signs of rank: a crest traversing his helmet, a cape, shin guards called greaves, and a vine stick with which to keep the troops in line. Notice the shiny armour of the legionaries. It was kept in such highly polished condition to facilitate the deflection of glancing blows. Here we see soldiers training for combat. It is known that they indeed used wicker shields and weighted wooden swords for such occasions. It is interesting to see how the shield itself becomes a weapon as the combatants seek to barge their opponent off balance and stab at his side. A brief look at a line of legionaries facing us demonstrates just how little area of attack their shields allowed any approaching enemy. The Roman army's ability to maneuver exactly in tight formation set them apart from all their enemies. Here we see them maneuver in square formation, protecting their centurion and standards in the centre. The importance of such maneuver should not be underestimated. In ancient battlefield tactics, the ability to hold formation was vital to gaining victory. The centurion makes some last adjustments to the famous tortoise formation, the testudo. This array provided excellent protection against missiles and was generally deployed in order to approach enemy fortifications. There is in fact a recorded use of it in the taking of the Samnite city of Aquilonia, when the Roman legionaries, in testudo formation, forced their way in through the open city gate, which had been opened to allow the retreating Samnites to take refuge in the city. As you can see, the testudo is a formation that requires considerable skill, discipline and practice to be applied successfully. How easy it would be for this to become a tangled mess of limbs and shields. Here we see a demonstration of the wedge formation. As one sees them approach, one can appreciate how this formation could be used to concentrate an attack on a point in the enemy line, causing it to break. Yet I think it is fair to say that the centurion would most likely not have been the man volunteering himself for the perilous position at the point. And now for the cavalry. Having seen the Marian mules of the infantry hauling their heavy load earlier in the clip, it comes as little surprise that, in early Roman history, the cavalry was the domain of the privileged rich. How much easier must their life have been to stride their mounts, instead of slogging through the mud in sandals? The horses you see are especially chosen to be fairly representative of the shape and size of the horses of the day, more akin to sturdy ponies than to contemporary large Arab animals. As we see here, the cavalry was versatile, yet it must be said that in direct combat with other horsemen, Roman cavalry always tended to come up short. Spanish, African and Gallic horsemen all tended to be superior on the battlefield. Somehow it appears fighting on horseback never suited the Roman mindset. Hence, later cavalry units were drawn from the provinces. The essential use of cavalry was that of an assassin of the defenceless. Initially in battle, cavalry was merely positioned to guard the flanks. However, once the Roman infantry had broken the enemy in battle, the foe began to flee. That's when the cavalry came into its own. Its horses could easily outpace an exhausted enemy footman trying to run away. So the role of the Roman cavalryman was that of charging after fleeing enemies and stabbing them in the back, either with lance or sword. Not very glamorous, yet very effective. Battles often would produce few casualties on either side as long as the battle lines held. Though no sooner did one side break, slaughter ensued. The heavily armoured Roman legionaries would not be very successful in running after lightly armed barbarians, but the cavalry would achieve this with ease. It is thanks to such ruthless tactics that Roman losses at times only amounted to a few dozen, yet the enemy was reported to have lost thousands. The Roman army is famous for its engineering and siege techniques. Here we have a ballista, a fearsome stone-throwing catapult. Operating on much the same principles as a crossbow, it is capable of considerable precision as well as raw power. The effort needed by the two soldiers in winding up the device gives one an idea of just how much energy is stored in the torsion ropes prior to the release of the mechanism. If the previous full-size ballista was essentially a siege weapon, then the Scorpio ballista was a field support weapon used in battle by dedicated units who concentrated their fire onto the massed ranks of the enemy. Its bolts would easily drive through a shield and might possibly take out several individuals at once. The onager, meanwhile, is an entirely different beast. Watch the two soldiers wind the ratchet and you appreciate just how much power is stored prior to release. The name onager translates into ass or donkey, and was given to the machine due to the wild kick it was liable to produce if wound up very fiercely. This device was far more powerful than the crossbow devices we have seen before, and could be used to batter substantial fortifications. Quite literally, it represented the heavy artillery of the day. We leave the soldiers now as they salute the standards, and I extend my thanks to the reenactors of the Urban Street Guard for this display.